Whew. Okay, so in case you guys have not been keeping up, the Lexus IS has just come out in a refreshing state. Yes, again. And so, of course, when I'm looking at these things, I always take an analytical lens. I always do a little digging and diving, right? So, the Lexus IS is the compact sedan offered by Lexus. Now, as we all know, and have been a little sad about this, is that SUVs continue to take precedent over everything else. And the IS at one point, especially during the 2000s, was a cultural phenomenon because of its styling, its absolutely great driving dynamics, especially with the earlier first generation as compared to the second generation. And it was something about the design language of Lexus back then. Now, fast forward into today, and the platform has been relatively aging, so to speak. Lexus seems to not have done much with it, and so a lot of car enthusiasts have complained, but that's really not the point of this video today. So in the new refreshing state of the IS, Lexus has unveiled what looks like a refreshed grille and some styling cues, and not necessarily a redesign, but an evolution of what was prior. Now, the specs say that this will be both still retaining the 311 horsepower 3.5 liter V6, but also a hybridized version of the powertrain. Now, while that's not exactly exhausting news, what is exhausting to know is that another great big-bodied, bulky, big-chested V8 is now being deleted. Now, here's where the controversy comes in, is that the IS500 had a send-off a few months ago, and it kind of resonated that this would be the last stand for the 5-liter V8. And we as enthusiasts clamored for this V8 because we as enthusiasts tend to ask for things we don't buy. The point of this video today will explore not just the IS500, but did Lexus miss the mark with the 500, and is that why they're going away? I think I have a theory. I want to talk about it, and I'm going to get into it. What's up, guys? My name is Chris. What's up, guys? My name is Chris, and welcome to The Breakdown, where we talk about everything cars, news, and reviews. If you're new to the channel, welcome. As always, if you're not, welcome back. So, like I said before, Lexus has announced the new IS, and it will not contain the 5-liter V8. Now, for all of you guys who know, back in the early 2000s, the ISF from 2008 to 2014 was a big deal because for the first time, a Lexus variant of a bigger, bolder Supra, which we didn't have access to, was possible. Now, the reason why the ISF was such a big deal back in the early 2000s was because for the first time we had an attainable performance compact vehicle. This was really for the hardcore enthusiasts that did not want the same level of rawness that came along with the Mustang, Camaro, and as of course the Dodge Challenger / Charger. This was more of the gentleman's GT as described by Motor Trend and Car and Driver. And so the ISF was more of a love letter to the enthusiast. And of course, it was discontinued in 2014. And it seems as though since around that time, 2014 to 2016, Lexus has almost forgotten about the IS, and we don't even have the GS anymore. And so the only thing that's really left are the SUVs, the ES, and the LS. Now, thinking about all of those things, it's calls into question whether or not the IS500 that was recently debuted back in 2020 was a good idea. It was supposed to be a here damn situation from Lexus, and in this video we'll not only talk about the legacy of the ISF, but more importantly why the IS500 makes sense to us, but it does not make sense to Lexus, and thus they discontinued it. If that's something of interest to you, stick around and stay tuned because you are now watching The Breakdown. Okay, so it's gone. Okay, so the thing is that Lexus, how can I say this delicately? Lexus doesn't care. And Lexus doesn't care because they only see the benefit in giving the compact as an offering, not necessarily as a commodity. Now, of course, you guys know the Lexus IS and the Toyota Altaza have been a thing since 1998, and there have been 3 generations since its inception, or since it first came to the United States and later to Japan. And so, as a moniker, the IS was supposed to be the compact sport side of Lexus, whereas the GS was supposed to be the big brother to that. And of course, you had the ultra refined LS, and of course, the Toyota Camry variant, the ES, which I'm not gonna hold you, I kind of see why they still have that going, because Camrys still sell. But the thing is that when the IS first debuted, it gave the brand youth. The GS couldn't quite achieve that. And the lines, especially if you got the European Altezza lights put in your IS, man, you was doing it. Now, of course, they also had the choreographed instrument panel, and while it was nice, a lot of journalists complained that it was not exactly reader friendly, but otherwise it was the BMW killer of its time. And so the sport wagon came in. We had a 5-speed automatic transmission, which would eventually transition to a 6-speed manual, and the first generation, chef's kiss. It even came with a detuned version of the GS, which was a variant of the Supra engine. Now, don't get me the line because I don't remember the engine code. Y'all leave me a comment below and let me know, because y'all know I don't remember stuff. But but the IS in its first iteration was probably one of the first times we had seen Lexus truly attempt to capture the younger audience. And that's a big point that I'm going to make, but I'm going to tie this back later. Now, during the second generation, we all know that. I think I grew up with that generation. Particularly, I remember there was something about Lexus's design, and I think it was called the L-shaped design. I don't think that design language was out yet, but the design of the IS back then, even though it was a little more compressed and not as bold as the spindle grille that we saw later, which a lot of people hated, that design is quintessential refined Lexus. And what made the IS special by comparison to many of its other competitors, we knew we were getting Toyota reliability, but we also knew we were getting Toyota performance, because in this one in particular, especially towards the second generation with the ISF, there was a partnership with Yamaha. We even saw that in Toyota Corollas and the high performance model of those. And so there was a lot of injection of youth in Toyota. And of course, we all know during the Great Recession of 2008, a lot of things changed for Toyota. This is not going without saying that Toyota does still have some level of sporty offerings today, but they're mostly focused on SUVs because that's what sells. And I think that the IS by comparison has gotten lost in the sauce for a few reasons. Now, there's not much to talk about because part of my complaint is that the IS has not changed, and it's changed mechanically very subtly, but not enough for enthusiasts to remember. Now, the 2008 to 2014 years were great because we also got the ISF variant. And the ISF was the first time we had seen Lexus actually try to shoot for names like AMG, M, even Type S, because Type S had been out for some time, so they were still competing. And so Lexus in the ISF brand, or the F brand, has had some level of heritage to it, and during 2014 they announced that they would be discontinuing it. Fast forward into today, the IS500 exists, but sparingly. And now fast forward into today, the IS500 has been discontinued, and so it calls into question, did they miss the mark even reintroducing it back? Back in 2020 they announced for fanfare purposes that they would be reintroducing the IS500 as a reintroduction of the ISF, and a lot of us moaned and groaned because nobody wanted that. None of us wanted it, baby. You could have kept it. And part of the reason why you could have kept it is because it gave us the engine, but it didn't give us the soul of the ISF. We just wanted the F. We didn't care about none of that else. Brand cachet is a real thing, and I don't understand why car companies don't try to go for that. But I digress. But in today, now that they're discontinuing the IS500, I really wanted to know, did they miss the mark? The answer is yes, and I'm going to explain why. The first reason why they missed the mark, it's been a long time coming, but the younger performance enthusiast has been neglected. And while it doesn't make money, it does hold value in the loyalty and brand cachet that you as a car company tend to have. And I'm just a small YouTube channel. I don't know anything, just happen to be in the industry for 15 years. So, you know, there's that. But the truth is that as many car companies have eased their way into SUVs, and many of us younger enthusiasts have eased our way into SUVs, it's more about value proposition, not because we don't want the performance models. And part of it is that many of us have families, many of us have traveling jobs, and we have to haul a lot of our things. And of course, you know, it just makes more sense for us to get SUVs as the older crowd. But the younger person still likes sporty. The younger person still likes flashy. And in the attempt in trying to capture the SUV market, Lexus, like many other manufacturers, has indeed lost the plot. The idea is to get them into the brand so that later on down the road, they can get the SUVs and the big sedans because they will stay faithful to the brand. The IS500 is a mismark in one particular instance, that it wasn't a true F. And say what you want, and you can argue that, you know, nobody's buying it, but somebody's buying Chargers, somebody's buying Challengers. Hell, a lot of people are still buying the Type S, even though it's $60,000, and I'll never understand why. But my point is that there are still people buying those special moniker cars. And for the IS500, it doesn't have the same ring of a bell as an ISF does, and that's very important. The other reason why I believe they missed the mark is because they didn't really market it that well. The IS as a brand has been undermarketed because it's really been entry level, and for a lot of Lexus people, they didn't see a reason to get into Lexus as much as they did to get into, let's say, BMW and Mercedes, and even they're struggling. And there's a downfall of compact sedans that I'll talk about one day in another video. But as far as Lexus goes, most people only think about the RX, and dear God, they even think about the ES for whatever reason, and in some cases the LS has been slowing down, and the LS is the big daddy of Lexus. So if that sedan is struggling with some modicum of marketing, it's only a matter of time to put together that nobody really gives about the IS500. Now, the real question in all of this is, why has Lexus not done anything with the IS? Let's just be honest. The platform has been aging for so long, and there's been nothing truly refined. In fact, I would argue between the GR lineup and the Prius got more updates than the damn IS. How in the f does that happen? I don't understand. But because the Prius was such a hit, it got a lot of engineering refinements and developments, and it's 200 horsepower when the original IS is 215. Like, put the things together. I think now a Prius Prime actually outpaces a 2001 Lexus IS, because now you can get a Prius Prime with 220 horsepower. So all of those things aside, the luxury companies have forgotten that the people want luxury too. Put it back. And so I will ultimately say that, being that the IS500 has been discontinued, it is a swan song to performance, and I do believe that because it was a V8, it made it that much more harder to justify, because more people are focused on fuel efficiency. Of course, car companies are pushing fuel efficiency. They're even pushing EVs, and I don't even want to talk about where car companies are with EVs. That's a whole different spiel in itself. And honestly, I'm a little sad that we didn't get a new ISF. I'm even more sad that the IS has pretty much not been altered in the last 13 to 15 years. And it does say a lot about the dying segment of the luxury compact, as I am someone who absolutely loves compact cars. I've never really graduated to mid-size and or large size vehicles. And I do still think that there are a lot of older people who, like myself, who don't have kids, who don't have a huge family. We still like compact vehicles, but still like the luxury appointments. In other words, all the things that I'm saying is that Lexus, can you give us something that the young people and some of the older people want? But you guys leave me a comment below and let me know how you feel about the IS500, and whether or not you feel like it was worth it to bring it back, or they should have left the legacy to the ISF and actually brought the ISF back instead of disguising it as fanfare and saying, hey, we brought the V8 back. We checked all the boxes. If you stuck around to this far in the video, thank you as always. I really appreciate you checking me out. And with that being said, until the next one, I will see you guys later.